People in Discord can hear me. I guess Twitter stream is a whole nother animal. I'll see if people in the Twitter chat can hear me. But that is a great sign. So welcome everyone to the 20th edition of the Solana Circuit. Today we have Ika with us. Very excited to have them. I normally have my very handsome co-host David with me today, but unfortunately he's not feeling well, so you all are stuck with me. But super excited to get into this. And we've been chatting with the Ika team for a little while now, and they actually just made a pretty big move over to Solana, which is absolutely massive, and that's going to be a big discussion point for today. But other than that, I think we can just jump straight into it. I've got David with me here. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to get into the Solana ecosystem and talk to all the different builders and teams and users and communities. It's been an absolute pleasure, and looking forward to today's discussion.
Yeah, me as well, man. What ecosystem did you guys originally build on? What was the name of it?
So initially, we built, like most of the time, we've been working on this for 4 years. Most of the time was mostly cryptography research. So we weren't really necessarily in any specific ecosystem. When we launched mainnet, we decided to launch on Sui. So Sui was the first network that Ika was made available. And now we're expanding to Solana. So now Solana builders will also be able to use Ika. And we're also, as part of this move to Solana, we're also launching a project on Solana called Encrypt, which is also using Ika under the hood as infrastructure.
Very cool. Well, before we address the big elephant in the room, which is, what exactly inspired the move from Sui? Why did you guys originally pick Sui? And what was the reason you guys eventually made the decision to actually move to Solana, other than, the builder ecosystem being much stronger? I'd love to get into, what do you do at Ika? What exactly is Ika? What problem are you guys trying to solve? And explain that for our audience, because I'm sure we'd love to know.
Absolutely. So when we started working on what eventually became Ika, and that was 4 years ago, we wanted to solve. So we come from a background of cryptography, cybersecurity, deep tech. That's our background, and this was the first thing that we wanted to build in crypto, and we wanted it to be something that solves a significant problem that no one was really able to solve because the tech wasn't there to solve it, right? So somewhere where we can actually make an impact with creating novel technology. And the problem that we identified, and we called it different names over the years, but essentially it's the problem where when it comes to custody and when it comes to interoperability, there's a huge problem with trust. So the whole point of crypto was to remove trust in third parties and to be able to do things autonomously by yourself and not have to trust anyone, not even trust validators or miners of the network, right? You can always verify everything. That's the basic premise of crypto. But then when you look at reality, custody is so difficult that it ended up reverting to centralized custodians, centralized exchanges that actually hold funds for users, things like Privy, or every time you need to actually onboard users, you start to sacrifice trust. And then when it comes to interoperability, we had bridges, we had all these solutions that allowed you to do things between chains, but you had to trust someone. And it's not a coincidence that the vast majority of hacks we're targeting exactly these types of solutions, right? Centralized custodians, centralized exchanges, bridges, almost in the entirety of the assets that were hacked and stolen in crypto were based on these categories. And that's because when you remove this zero trust guarantee, the cryptographic zero trust guarantee, it creates a honeypot and it creates an attack vector where bad actors can come and drain assets. And so that was the problem we wanted to solve. And we decided we had to do a lot of cryptography research because it's not people didn't do it that way because they were lazy. It's just because the cryptography wasn't there to solve it. And we created a few. We did a lot of cryptography research. We published a few papers, and the end result was that we were able to create this new primitive, and this primitive is called a Dwallet, a decentralized wallet. And a Dwallet is a zero trust signing mechanism that can be controlled by both a user and a network, the Ika network. And that means that it is zero trust in nature because nothing can happen without the user, but it's generic. It has an address on any chain. It can sign transactions to those chains. And then what you need to do is basically write a policy, and that policy can be a custody policy, an interoperability policy. It can be trading, lending, whatever you want it to be. And that logic is enforced across chains in a zero trust way through this new primitive, this Dwallet. So that's kind of in a nutshell. This was just me talking for 2-3 minutes, but it took us a few years to actually create the cryptography in order to solve it. And then that's the result is this new primitive and this new paradigm of building custody solutions or interoperability solutions in a way that doesn't sacrifice zero trust, but still allows a good user experience and is still decentralized in essence.
So what was the original reason for starting Ika? Is it Ika or Ika? Because I'm gonna butcher it the whole time if I don't get it correct.
It's Ika. Ika is squid in Japanese.
Ika, okay. So what was the original, like, who sat down and said, the world needs this, we need to build this, there's no other solution? I mean, at the time, was anybody working on cryptocurrency encryption like this to make this possible, or were you guys kind of pioneers in the space at the time?
So a lot of people tried to tackle this problem, and maybe I can talk about how people were trying to tackle it and what exactly we did differently in order to kind of explain how that works. But this isn't a new problem, right? Like everyone knows, everyone has been saying this for years. Seed phrases are super complex. It's not something that you can rely on for mass adoption. It's not usable. And then if you trust someone else, then you're removing the whole not trusting third parties of crypto. The same goes with interoperability. Everyone knows bridges aren't great. They fragment liquidity. They create a lot of security issues, right? Like everyone knows these things are subpar. And if you look at the way that people were trying to solve these issues, so at first you just had centralized custodians, and then people started looking at MPC as a solution, so threshold signatures. And what does that mean? It means no single entity holds the full key, but the key is separated and held by multiple entities. So, for example, Fireblocks, I think, is the most well-known MPC provider. They became this, huge, very successful company because they solved that problem for institutions, right? And they said, look, you don't have to fully trust me. I don't hold the full key, but you just trust me for enforcing access control. And then I can create an experience that isn't this very naive, rudimentary private key experience where I either have 100% of the permissions forever or I have zeros permissions, forever. But you can have this more, the way that you are used to access control in Web 2 systems. You have different users, different permissions, different spending limits, and they will just enforce that. So you're not trusting them with a full key, but you are trusting them to enforce the access control. But that isn't, this is like an enterprise solution, right? It's not really a developer-friendly solution. Developers can't just take Fireblocks and start using it. And even if they could, they're still trusting Fireblocks as a centralized entity there. And so what people said is, let's maybe take MPC and try and decentralize it and make it into a network, right? The problem is when people did that, they used the same protocols, the same MPC protocols that were designed for something like Fireblocks, for a centralized custodian. And then what happened is you were able to create more parties creating the signatures, but you took the user out of the equation. So instead of having Fireblocks plus the user, which means the user doesn't have to fully trust Fireblocks, now you have a bunch of nodes, and you see that. I mean, there are a few examples of that. Like Near has an MPC network, and ICP, Definity, but there you trust the network itself. So the user doesn't have a say, right? The user can't prevent a signature from being generated. So in a way, it made it a bit less centralized, but it's removed the zero trust part again. And so what we did is we said, let's create this new primitive, this Dwallet. And in this Dwallet, you will have the user and the network itself will be also internally an MPC. So it's basically like taking Fireblocks, decentralizing it, but still keeping the user in the loop and allowing it to become a building block for developers so they can just use it however they want within their smart contract. So to do that, we had to do a lot of cryptography research and actually create a new MPC protocol from scratch because that didn't exist. But after around 2.5 years, we were able to achieve the breakthroughs in the research in order to do that. And we've published quite a few papers since. And that's kind of the story of how we got here.
Yeah, pretty cool you mentioned MPC because I used to be the head of community over at Nillion, who's a pretty big player in the crypto space and in building out MPC. I guess just so the audience understands, what's the difference between you guys and these cryptography projects like Archium and Nillion that are more focused on the actual cryptography infrastructure and saying, hey, developers, come build on us? It sounds like you guys are more focused on Dwallets and actually providing like a retail facing product for people to use based on the technology you're building. Am I getting that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the use cases that that are being targeted because cryptography is it's math. It's methods to do specific things, and then you need to productize that into a specific offering for specific use cases. So MPC is a very, very broad term, and it can be used to do a lot of different things cryptographically. Specifically, for example, Archium is using MPC, or what is called generic MPC, in order to offer privacy. So you can perform actions on encrypted data. We are using a specific type of MPC protocol, which is a threshold signature protocol that we developed called 2PC MPC. And that is specifically optimized in order to be able to generate signatures at scale. So this is the use case that we designed our cryptography around, right? Nillion, I'm actually not super up to date on what they're doing now. I know that they moved to a lot of TEE stuff and not necessarily on the cryptography side. So it's now more hardware secured, but I'm not super up to date in what Nillion are doing. But MPC is a very broad term, and a lot of projects are using MPC for different functions. And the question is really, what is the product, and what are the use cases that this product enables?
Yeah, I completely agree. It needs to be product first, and you need to lead with a really strong product for anybody to actually really care and use what you're building, especially in crypto. Feels like there's so many projects out there that they promise the world and then never actually provide a product for people to use. I'm sure you know the projects I'm talking about. So I'd love to actually talk about the core product you guys are building. Can you break down Dwallets and what is Bridgeless Capital Markets and explain it to me like I'm 5?
Okay, like 5 is maybe a bit of a stretch, but I'll try
Maybe
and
6 years
make
old.
it as simplified as possible.
We can do
Yeah,
6 years
okay,
old
6,
if we
sure.
need to.
So I think that a D-wallet, the easiest way to explain a D-wallet is imagine if you could have a multi-chain account that is programmable, it's transferable. You can think about it like assetizing an account, right? Like making it a building block. And so instead of this flow that you have in your head, which is I create a seed phrase and then I have an account and only I control it, etc., this is created in a completely different way, but it has the same function. So it has an address on any network, and it can generate signatures. And from the network perspective, right, if you sign a Bitcoin transaction or a Solana transaction, the network won't be able to identify that this came from a Dwallet or did it come from a phantom wallet, right? It's the exact same signature. So imagine turning that into a primitive that developers can write logic around, that they can play around with, that they can transfer between users. So that's, I think, the easiest way to explain the Dwallet. And then you can think about that through the use cases that enables. So if we're thinking about custody, for example, custody is a huge issue, and we've just had a horrible hack in Solana that was connected to things that are related to custody. Custody is very complicated, and is it's very I would say an underserved aspect of crypto today. The amount of hacks that we see or people losing their keys or things like that in crypto is completely unacceptable if we want this to be the financial rails of the future, right? This is obviously, everyone understands that this is unacceptable. So there is a big problem in custody, and when we're thinking about how we talk about these problems, then today the trade-off today is you need to choose between being zero trust, like self-custody and decentralized, and between usability and user experience. So if you're choosing user experience and usability, you're kind of sacrificing decentralization or zero trust. And if you're choosing decentralization or zero trust, you're sacrificing the usability, and you're becoming more susceptible to these huge losses. And this is this trade-off has to go away. We have to have all three. Or it's either we say, okay, crypto failed and we couldn't really deliver this great user experience without sacrificing so when people onboard crypto, it'll be through some sort of trusted third party, which means, at least in my eyes, this means that we failed in our mission, or we find a way to remove that trade-off, right? And I think this is basically the main one of the main use cases or categories of use cases for Ika is to remove that trade-off. You can have amazing user experience. You can have institutional grade security for your custody without having to trust an institutional custodian, right? Without having to trust a centralized third party. So this is one very big, strong use case. And another big, strong use case is we can do things between different chains without having to fragment liquidity, create derivatives, wrapped assets, trust bridges, and create honeypots in those bridges for hackers to hack. We can do that without any of that. And we can do that by enforcing logic directly on chains through Dwallets. So, for example, if I want to, why would I wrap Ethereum and bring it to Solana? Because I want to trade it, because I want to use it in lending markets, right? What if I build the trading protocol or the lending protocol on Solana using native assets on any other chain? So you can you can trade directly native Ethereum with native Sol. Now you don't need to wrap it. You don't need a bridge. It's bridgeless. You can hold native BTC or native Zcash. That you can hold it as collateral and receive a loan on Solana or on Ethereum. And all of that logic is enforced natively on the target chains without bridging over assets. Asset A doesn't move from chain A to chain B. It stays on its own chain, on its native chain, but the logic is all enforced from Solana. So this is why it's called Bridgeless Capital Markets, is we want to create this seamless native experience that has the same user experience that you would expect and the same security that you would expect from your Web2 account and your Web2 experience, but with all of the added value of crypto, which is zero trust, self-custody, permissionless environments. So this is kind of how we're seeing Dwallets fitting in this new category of bridgeless capital markets and how that will take crypto to the next stage.
I think that reality is hitting people like a truck. People who have been in crypto for years now, they're realizing that, we can have all this decentralization, we can have this network that's impenetrable, but if it's hard for people to use, they're not going to use it. And we've seen that so many times across all the different crypto wallets that are focused on acquiring users. The average person just gets a Robinhood account or a Coinbase account and purchases crypto from there. Like, most people are not going to interact with the typical on-chain experience that we interact with on a daily basis. Most people aren't going to download a wallet. They're not going to
And
want to save their
uh,
private keys.
even
It's
more, even more than that, I think that it's when you're a developer and you want to onboard people to crypto, usually what people do is they just use Privy, right?
Yeah.
And because that's the easiest way to onboard users. And the problem with that is that Privy is owned by Stripe, and you are paying rent for you're basically renting your users' accounts from Stripe. And this is just antithetical to everything that crypto is supposed to be. And one of the projects I'm most excited about that is building on Ika right now is called Wallet as a Protocol. It's built by a team called Human Tech, and they're basically building wallet as a service like Privy, but they're building it as a protocol. So it's decentralized, it's permissionless, it's built on Ika. You can have the exact same experience like you have with Privy, but you're not, renting out your user accounts from Stripe.
Yeah, that's huge. And you've mentioned this a few times, that the original promise of crypto was a trustless environment where anyone can do anything and they don't need to trust a centralized intermediary. And it feels like so many different parts of crypto have just slowly introduced more and more middlemen. I mean, I'm not sure if most people knew this, but when you interact with like MetaMask wallet or Phantom wallet, you're usually interacting with the centralized RPC that's logging your IP address, that's logging your data. Like, there's so many steps in the process that are just centralized right now, and it's completely antithetical. I totally agree with you. It's we need more solutions like Ika for sure. So D-wallets sound really interesting. I'm curious. I know we mentioned this earlier in the stream in the very beginning. You guys were originally on Sui, and you made the decision to move to Solana. What sparked that decision? What made you guys say, yeah, Solana's the chain we want to build on?
First of all, we've always been huge fans of Solana. I think that some of the newer chains had the advantage of being able to learn from Solana and launch things that are very high performance. We're very, very obsessed with performance. We're obsessed with things like finality. And when we made the decision on where to launch was over a year ago. Solana was still working on, let's say, catching up with the gap that was created with some of the newer chains. I think now they're doing it. I think with the upcoming upgrades like Alpenglow, for example, Solana is going to be one of the best, if not the best, blockchain in terms of performance and finality. But before that, it was a bit of a risk. So we decided to launch on Sui, which we really like Sui. We like the tech there a lot. And so we launched there. It is live on mainnet now. You can build on Sui. There are builders that are building on Sui. I think Solana is just unrivaled in terms of its developer ecosystem. I mean, the developer velocity, the energy that you have with developers here, and us as a developer infrastructure, that's the number one consideration for us is having developers using our infrastructure. So for us, it was always sorry, a matter of time of when Solana catches up and can get to the level of performance that we need in order to do, because Ika is a very complex platform. It's like an MPC network that does off-chain, but it coordinates on-chain. So you need to constantly read and write requests from the chain. It's very, very heavy-duty stuff. So the moment we saw that Solana is going to have Alpenglow and to be one of the top chains in terms of performance, then for us, it was a no-brainer to come to Solana to open up sorry,
You're good.
to open up the possibilities that um, you know uh, are available with Ika and soon with Encrypt as well to all Solana developers. And so for us, since we announced the launch, it's been really amazing to feel the energy and to see all of the developers being interested. So many developers are now building in Coliseum and playing around with Ika and Encrypt to see what they can build. It's really been amazing, and we're very bullish on Solana, the Solana ecosystem, and on Ika and soon Encrypt being able to push it to the next level of mass adoption.
Yeah, the number one thing you're gonna find on Solana is that the support you'll find here is unlike any other ecosystem. I mean, the foundation, the Coliseum guys, they do such a good job at not only supporting builders, but providing them opportunities to distribute what they're building and get other people excited about it. Like even personalities like Mert and Vibu alone, like that's worth 10x what other ecosystems can do for your project. So, I mean, I'm a little biased. I work in Solana, but I think you guys made the right choice by coming over to this side. Um, so I'm curious, why did you guys choose a squid? You said that the Ika was a Japanese word for a squid. Why is a squid the mascot for your guys' brand?
It's very random. I mean, when we started working, we're a bunch of cryptography and cybersecurity researchers. We come from Web 2. This we're not. Personally, we did stuff on crypto, but we're not what you would call, crypto native or degens. And so for us at first, it was mostly around, doing the cryptography research and talking about our cryptography research and building it out and sharing. And, we built a lot of very exciting things, but it turns out there's a lot of noise in crypto and people don't really care about exciting things just, because the tech is interesting, right? You need something more than that in order to kind of break through the noise and let people actually hear about you and then learn about you and then get excited. And so about I would say almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we had Illumi join our team, who he's now our resident degen, and he's basically our go-to to all things crypto. And he told us, "Look, you guys, yeah, you're great. Great tech, amazing, great. No one cares. You need to get people to be excited, to care about the brand, to care about what it makes them feel, and then that would make them want to learn, and that would get them excited about the tech. But it doesn't work the other way around." And so he led this complete uh, degenerate rebrand where there's a squid, and there was also like this pink-haired anime girl who he killed her. There was a funeral. It was a whole thing, and this has nothing to do with the technology or anything like that. It was just about getting a community excited, getting people interested, getting people to click on, hey, what is this? And we've seen it work, because it's pretty amazing how at first a lot of people got excited about Ika and no one had any idea what it actually does. And then gradually you started seeing people just research it, learn what is, threshold signatures, what's zero trust, what are the problems, write posts about it, do spaces, debate it. It's like, it's really true that you need to first get people excited about something, and then emotionally and then intellectually, and not the other way around. So that was kind of our learning journey within crypto on how to build something that people are actually excited about.
Crypto's an interesting industry, man. You almost need to have the resident degen on your team, otherwise you're just gonna kind of flail around. It's such a different culture from Web 2 infrastructure to Web 3 infrastructure. And I can tell you your guys' marketing is definitely working. When I told the Raikou community that we'd have Ika come onto our Solana circuit, I had a ton of people say like, "Oh my God, Ika's great." And a couple of people were actually confused because they thought you were still on Sui, or like, Wait, aren't they on Sui?" Like, I didn't know they were coming to Solana. So this is almost like an announcement for you guys, or part of the announcement. But it's so interesting. uh, when I was at Nillion. It's actually funny. I don't know what it is about killing mascots off in crypto, because I did the same exact thing at Nillion. We had an owl, and his name was Steven the Owl, and yeah, I also held a funeral for him. He died. HR killed him from unknown circumstances, but for whatever reason, the mascots they don't seem to have a very long lifespan in crypto,
With
usually
us,
from death.
with us, it was her name. Her name is Ika-chan. That's the pink-haired anime girl that was with the squid. And at first, it started to get out of control. I think the whole Ika-chan stuff, because pink-haired anime girls, you can see how that can get real raunchy real fast. And
Yeah.
I think it was just as we were getting closer to mainnet, and we're cybersecurity, deep cryptography protocol. Like, we wanted people to not just get completely bombarded with hentai content when they try to learn about like threshold signatures. So that was, I think, kind of the decision around killing off Ika-chan. But she does make a cameo like every now and again, subtle cameo. But yeah, it's a weird industry. I don't know. I feel like this is every frontier industry in the world kind of has to have this level of degeneracy. And to be honest, when Elon Musk started chilling his anime girls for XAI, I was like, if one of the biggest companies in the world is doing that, so maybe it's not that a bad idea. But yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, and unfortunately, very familiar with Elon's gooning on Twitter, because he forces everyone to see his tweets, which is not a great feature of X, but here we are. um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think the degeneracy is just a way of coping with the high stress of working in this industry. Like we saw yesterday, the whole tech industry was having an existential crisis because of this new Claude Mythos model that Claude comes out with and says, hey, this is going to kill software forever. We basically made a model that can penetrate any security network and destroy everything you've ever known and loved, which is awesome. So I want to get your take on that, what you think Mythos is and isn't, and if Ika is doing anything to potentially protect against AI threats or quantum like that. I assume you guys are, since you're an encryption and cryptography project.
So I mean, it's a very, very broad subject. I think that let's start with first of all, um, what are the different levels of like security guarantees, right? And so there are cryptographic security guarantees, which is basically math, right? So math, it doesn't matter what AI does, right? AI can't break math, right? Math can be proven. Um, and then once you prove something is true, it's true, it's not. The problem is always not in the math, it's in the implementation detail, right? In writing code that tries to implement the math, or a system that is engineered around math implementation. And there will always be, code can never be 100% secure. It doesn't work that way. You can have things like formal verification that make sure that you verify that the code does exactly what it says it does and nothing else. But it still doesn't mean that you can't find logical vulnerabilities, right? There's all these things that are not connected to the math. So when we talk about cryptographic security, that is, we published papers that were peer reviewed and have like mathematical proofs of the cryptographic security. And then the question is really the implementation. And the implementation is something that will always you'll always be able to increase the level of sophistication of attacks and try to find more ways to attack them. And I think this is probably, we don't really have access to it, so we don't know. But based on what we hear, this is an example of what Mythos does, right? And a lot of people think that this would kill open source software. I think quite the opposite. This will actually make open source software more resilient, because if you can, as these more and more powerful LLMs go out, if you can throw them at open source software and make it harder, right, and find vulnerabilities and fix them, that works much better than some sort of black box that no one knows and can be exploited because no one can actually test against it. So I think that's kind of one part of it. The other part is, I think, and this is something that a lot of people are very excited about, the promise of AI and LLMs, but AIs and LLM are far, far from perfect, right? And they make up shit all the time, and they
Yep.
do things that they're not supposed to do, and they don't listen to you. And it's like, they also do a lot of super exciting and cool things, but they're definitely not at the point where you just like, hey, go ahead, here's access to all of my money and just do whatever you want, right? Like that's AI is not at that place. And so I think that guardrails, right, for AI, especially when it comes to crypto, right, and spending things in a way that is irreversible and immutable, you have to have guardrails. You have to have policies that are enforced on AI. And then who enforces the policy? Are you trusting a third party to enforce the policy, or are you using something like Ika or something that's built on top of Ika in order to create decentralized guardrails for AI agents? And then the third part of AI, and where I think is interesting, is that once we have these guardrails in place, AIs will gradually take over a lot of the on-chain activity, AI agents. And that will actually change a lot of our assumptions when it comes to crypto. So today in crypto, a lot of things are designed in a way that takes into account the human user experience. So, for example, you have AMMs, right? Why do you have an AMM? I mean, atomic swaps that are peer-to-peer are much more capital efficient than just, putting a lot of funds inside a pool, right? But that's not a great human user experience, right? I need to be online when another person is online. We need to keep signing transactions. I approve, he approves, right? It's like, this is not something that you can imagine that happens with humans online. But with AI agents, that you can imagine happening, right? AI agents are always online. They don't care if they need to do, like interactions between each other. It doesn't matter to them. If it's more capital efficient, they would prefer doing it that way instead of AMMs. So that's just one example, right? But I think lending as well. You have lending pools instead of doing peer-to-peer lending. So all of these things that are currently the way that people, like the status quo in crypto, that is based on the human user experience, is going to fundamentally change when we move to agent user experience. And so a lot of things that if people don't connect them directly to AI, but are going to fundamentally change how crypto works. This is also something I'm very excited about, because I think this is where Ika can shine, when you have bridgeless capital markets between different chains. It has to be in a peer-to-peer way. You can't have pools across different chains, or you can, but then you're again removing trust, because you're pooling assets together. But if you do peer-to-peer actions, now you can do it with zero trust. So you can have bridgeless capital markets that are super efficient, completely native, without introducing trusted intermediaries, and they actually work because you're not creating a user experience for humans, you're creating a user experience for agents. So yeah, that's kind of my general take on AI and in general where it's going. I'm definitely not one of the doomers of AI, or like, oh my God, AI is going to ruin everything and we're all going to die. I think that's overstating kind of AI. AI is a very, very clever language model, but that's what it is. It's not anything else. I'm not part of the AGI is coming in 6 months camp. I think we're very far away from that. We're getting much better at language models, which is very cool and has a lot of benefits, right? But I don't think it's anything that we should be dramatically alarmed of.
You heard it here first, OpenClaw folks. Please stop giving AI access to all of your information and data and accounts and money. Please stop. No one wants to see you brag about it on Twitter.
By the way, there are multiple projects that are building agentic guardrails using Ika. Some of them are going to be live on Solana soon as well. So you'll be able to just use a policy, say exactly what you allow the AI to do or not, and then the AI doesn't ever have the full key. It only has half of the key, and the other half is enforced by Solana.
Yeah, and that's how it's going to have to be. If you give an agent just full access to your wallet with no guardrails, you're going to wake up to, I don't know, you're going to be millions of dollars in debt to the mafia or Sam Altman or the CEO of Anthropic or something worse even. But yeah, they can't be trusted yet. I work with Claude Code on an almost daily basis, and even with Opus 4.6, and I assume with Mythos when they eventually roll it out, when they say it's not going to end the world, it's going to continue to hallucinate, and we're still a very long ways away from AI becoming an actual financial partner, and these agents actually being able to trust, at least like the trust on your part, trustlessly transact on chain to the point where you know it's not going to blow up your portfolio or click a bad link and get your apes drained or anything like that. Um,
I mean, to be honest, even right now, let's say AI is at like 80 or 90, even 90%, right, of accuracy. That's obviously unacceptable. But even if when it gets to 99.9% accuracy, right? No one wants to be at the 0.1%, right? Like you still want to have
right.
guardrails. This is something that it doesn't, and AI will always, it's just like humans make mistakes, right? AI will make mistakes. Like this is inevitable. It doesn't matter how good it gets. So you will always need guardrails. Right now, without guardrails, it's just suicide because, AI is just, it's not reliable. But even when it becomes a lot more reliable, you would still need those guardrails. Like this is a non-negotiable.
Yeah, completely agreed. Completely agreed. Speaking of building on Ika, for the Solana developers that are watching this stream now or later in a recording, what's the easiest way for them to start integrating Ika today? And do you guys have any developer incentives or hackathons planned?
Yeah, so actually, we have a sidetrack that's running right now as part of Coliseum. So it's part of the Super Teams Earn sidetracks. So we have $15,000 in bounties for building with Ika and Encrypt, or either or both. That's one thing. We're also giving out a few like Cloud Code Max subscriptions to like promising teams that need some extra firepower. So there's one of my previous tweets, I think from yesterday. You can go there and comment if you want to meet with us and convince us to get the subscription. And we're always available. We have developer documentation for Solana, both for Ika and for Encrypt. You can check them out at docs.ika.xyz or docs.encrypt.xyz. And right now in Solana, we're still in pre-alpha mode, so it's live on DevNet, but not on mainnet yet. We are going to go live in the next couple of months, but right now it's still, you'll be able to build your application and be ready for mainnet day one launch. And if anyone wants to reach out, we're always reachable on X or Telegram. We have Fessel, who's our DevRel, who talks to builders just like day and night. And we are also going to be IRL in a few different events and some of the super teams build stations in London and the Balkan. We're going to be at Solana Accelerate in Miami. So yeah, don't hesitate to find us, reach out, have a chat. We're really excited to meet as many developers in the Solana community as possible.
Awesome. Well, I will see you in Miami, sir. I will be there as well. It's like a 3-hour drive for me,
Awesome.
so I'm kind of obligated to go. But yeah,
Cool.
I mean you'll find that Solana developers are everywhere, especially at the conferences. It's probably the best way to meet Solana developers. So you're definitely on the right track, and happy to make some intros as well if you need that. But so you guys have a token that's live now. Is it still on Sui?
Yeah, our token is on Sui. It's going to, when we go live on mainnet on Solana, it will also be available on Solana. The token is, it's a utility token. So you can think about Ika like a kind of an L1. but without smart contracts. So you build the smart contracts on Solana, not on Ika. But in order to use Ika, you need to pay gas fees. And in order to become one of the Ika operators, you need to stake the token. So it's like a proof of stake L1, basically, where you pay gas fees with Ika and you stake with Ika. And that's the purpose of the token. So in order to use it on Solana, you'll also need the Ika token on Solana. So the Ika network will essentially control the supply on both Solana and Sui. And this is one of the benefits of having a zero trust NPC network, is that you can actually have your token anywhere you want. But yeah, that's going to happen when we go live on mainnet on Solana.
Very exciting. Well, as you know, all assets eventually come to Solana. So you guys are going to find that out pretty quick.
So it's funny because our vision for Solana is that Solana will be the control layer for all assets, but you won't actually need to bring them to Solana, because bringing them to Solana means you're bridging them. You're trusting someone to create a derivative. Then you have multiple derivatives and fragmentation, and this foundation needs to create tokens .xyz to like just navigate all these different fragmented tokens. And I think our vision is Solana is where all digital assets are utilized, where they are controlled, where they are custodies, where they are swapped, but they don't need to be wrapped. They don't need to leave their native environment. You just control them from Solana. So it's kind of reversing how you think about it, but we need to find a different name, a different kind of phrase than assets are coming to Solana. But maybe Solana is coming for all of the assets.
Maybe Vibu can help you guys come up with one. He's usually pretty witty on Twitter.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So going back throughout your guys' history, working in crypto, things can be very eclectic, things can be very crazy. I mean, we just had that massive exploit with oh my gosh, Drift Protocol.
Drift.
I'm completely out of it. With Drift Protocol, which was a social engineering attack, not necessarily an exploit on their smart contracts or anything. But what's been like the funniest, wildest, most only in crypto moment while building this tech? What was it, killing off the anime character? Was that the craziest thing you guys have experienced?
So I think actually for me personally, and this is maybe more anecdotal, but it was my parents who are, on the older side, discovering like this weird hidden side of what I do that they couldn't wrap their head around. It's like they saw something on X where someone from the community created like an AI video of me dancing and doing stuff with like Ika-chan. It was completely degenerate. And they're like, we thought you were like a serious person with a serious job. What is going on? Like, are you part of this weird cult? Like, what is happening? Like, and trying to like explain and bridge the gap. And while I'm trying to explain it to them, I realize it is insane, right? It's like, it's completely insane. There's no real way to explain it. And I think they have no idea what's going on, and they're not sure, like, if I'm just making up all of this like, serious career that I had, and I'm actually just this weird degenerate person with this weird cult. So that was definitely for me one of the funniest thing, where when you're inside of it, it's kind of, you're like, oh, this is weird, but it kind of makes sense. But then when you need to actually explain it to someone else who knew you your entire life and has no idea what's going on, it becomes surreal.
So what do you tell people when they ask you what you do for a living? Have you changed it? Like I just tell people I work at a tech startup doing social media marketing, because if I explained what I actually did, it would be very complex and there'd be a lot of context to provide. So I relate to you.
Yeah, I usually just say, I have a cybersecurity company. I mean, it's true in a way. We do cybersecurity. Like cryptography is part of cybersecurity. It's like but it's the easiest way to explain because anything else it would create too many follow-up questions.
Yeah, it's just not worth the effort, right? um, so I got one final question for you here. I know we only got 7 minutes left. If you could give one piece of advice to someone just discovering Ika, what would you tell them?
So I think probably the most important piece of advice is to relinquish your like pre-existing assumptions on how things should be done and how how things are built, and a lot of the things that you can now do with Ika are things that you really couldn't have done before, and they also flip around some of the assumptions. So, a lot of people, when they first see Ika, so they're like, oh, it's a cross chain, it's like another bridge, right? And then they start thinking about it as a bridge. And to be fair, you can implement just another bridge with Ika. This is something that you can do, but then you're not really taking advantage of all the novelty that this new tech actually enables, which is removing bridges, right? So I think this is like the first thing you should do is kind of let go of all of your pre-existing assumptions and try and design a solution from scratch based on first principles and based on what do you actually want the result to be, instead of the things that you think you're forced to do because this is how crypto works. I think this is probably it takes a while, and it takes, when I have calls with builders, it usually takes like 2 or 3 calls until the pennies start dropping and people start realizing, oh, actually, now I get it. It's the opposite of what I thought. I don't need to go through. I don't need to have everything enforced here. I can actually do it through the user. Like all of these things that you couldn't think about them before. So it's less even technical. It's more like product work. It's like rethinking the product from first principles. That's probably the best advice I can give, and it takes some time, but what you can achieve with that and what you can get, and the competitive advantage that you can create for your solution is pretty amazing.
I mean, I tell you what, man, if I never have to touch a bridge ever again, I will be a very, very happy man. After being in crypto for 5 years, 365 days a year, I've got so much dust across so many different chains and so many different tokens. I've got WAUSDC. I got every acronym you could possibly think of every token. There's some form of dust on some other chain. It's terrible UX. It's never going to scale. So very excited
I
for what you guys are
I
bringing.
always say you need to remove the postcode in front of the token, right? If it's BTC, it's BTC. You don't need to have all the letters and whatever before. And so yeah, that's the goal. Remove all the postcodes, just leave the native tokens.
It's absolutely absurd. I've seen some postcodes that are like 10 letters long, and it's like, what could you possibly expect someone to do with this? Like, come on, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed.
But well, thank you so much for joining the Solana Circuit, David. Really appreciate your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with, or what's the best place for people to find out more about Ika?
First of all, visit ika.xyz on X. We're also Ika.xyz spelled out, so IKADOTXYZ. Also would be worthwhile taking a look at Encrypt. So Encrypt.xyz, and on X it's Encrypt_XYZ, which is an FHE protocol that we are building on top of Ika on Solana. So it uses Ika in order to coordinate some of the FHE components, but it allows Solana builders to basically encrypt their smart contracts. And so take a look at both of them. They both have at docs.ika.xyz and docs.encrypt.xyz, they have kind of the Solana pre-alpha SDK, so you can start playing around with it as a Solana developer, and reach out if this is exciting for you. If you have an interesting idea of what you can build, you can look at my X account, B3H3D_, where I continuously post like different ideas and different things that you can actually do with Ika and with Encrypt. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. We're very approachable, and we love to help people build this new wave of crypto unicorns that will be enabled by advanced cryptography on Solana.
Amazing. Go to ika.xyz in your browser, spelled out XYZ on Twitter, and go give them a follow. But thanks again, David. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Ciao.
Peace.